But here's a question many people asked me on the weekend. Are the 44 crew on board a disappeared Argentinian submarine still alive? Where are they and what happened when they went off the radar last Wednesday? It's proving very difficult to find the answers, and the sub, efforts to locate the vessel, are now being hampered by bad weather. Teams from several countries are continuing their efforts in the South Atlantic Ocean. The sub vanished somewhere along a 2,000-mile stretch of water. It was last known to be 430 kilometres from the country's southernmost tip, but all contact was lost last Wednesday. Anne Barker reports.
Submarine crews, by their nature, are trained to evade detection, but efforts to find the San Juan and its 44 crew have turned into a multinational military operation. The German-built sub was on a routine mission when it disappeared off the radar, though a series of failed satellite calls intercepted at the weekend have given hope the crew are alive. Captain Enrique Balbi is a spokesman for the Argentinian Navy. 7 call attempts of a few seconds, possibly a very low signal, which were not finalised. He says that information is still being checked to get concrete data on the sub's location. We'll continue working with triple the effort as we're doing. Navy protocol calls for a submarine to surface immediately if communication is lost. But the San Juan was travelling 2,000 miles up the Argentinian coast and could be anywhere in a vast stretch of ocean. Its last known location was 430 kilometres off the country's southern tip, but Navy Rear Admiral Gabriel Gonzalez said bad weather is complicating the search. The weather in the area continues to be very difficult, he says. Right now we have waves of 6 to 8 metres high with west to southwest winds of 40 knots. Unfortunately, these conditions are expected to remain for the next 48 hours or so. A massive search is now underway involving at least 5 nations. The US has sent sophisticated undersea rescue equipment, and its Antarctic patrol ship, HNS Protector, has been diverted to the South Atlantic Ocean. Captain Enrique Balbi. We're already in the area of operations, sweeping the zone, looking both on the surface and underwater, because we won't rule out any hypothesis. One man trained in detecting submarines is Andrew Davies, Director of Defence and Strategy at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute in Canberra. He says solidarity among submariners will mean crews around the world will be waiting in hope that the San Juan crew are rescued alive.
Submarines, of course, their main asset is being hard to find once they're submerged. So that's a double-edged sword when you have something like this where you're looking for a submarine that might be underwater.
So how confident are you that this will be found if communications have been permanently lost?
Well, it remains to be seen if the communications have been lost. There's reports of satellite failed calls, which I assume is what they call a handshake, a system trying to connect to the satellite but not going through. But if they have been, I don't think the prognosis is particularly good at the moment.
If the sub has been lost and is at the bottom of the ocean, how easy would it be to rescue the crew on board?
Depends critically on the water depth. At some depths, the crews can actually self-rescue. There are escape suits. You basically pop out of the submarine in an inflatable suit and bob to the surface. Although you would think that if that was the case, that might have already happened by now.
How long do you think the sub could last with oxygen on board?
Depends what else is going on board. If there's been a fire, that consumes a lot of the oxygen.
How much does this remind you of the Kursk disaster in Russia in 2000?
Well, the Kursk disaster was a bit different because the Kursk, we know now, had suffered several onboard explosions, and a small number of the crew had managed to survive for a while. But unfortunately, in part of the submarine where escape was impossible. So we have the benefit of hindsight with the Kursk, so we know what happened. In this case, we have very little idea.
And does history show many examples where a sub has gone missing like this, but have ultimately been found with everybody safe and well?
Look, I think bad news stories far outweigh the good news stories where missing submarines are concerned. With every hour that passes, it gets less likely that there'll be a good outcome.
Andrew Davies, the Director of Defence and Strategy at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Anne Barker reporting.